A call to order the March 26, 2019 meeting of the Portsmouth City Council. And before we start, on behalf of council, I apologize for the late start. We had a long agenda. And with that, we'll have an invocation by Reverend Canon Frederick Walker, the rector at St. James Episcopal Church. And I'll ask my colleagues on council to stand for the invocation. And then I'll ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilman Bill Moody.
I want you all to listen to the words from the psalmist from Psalm 142. I cried aloud to the Lord. I lift up my voice to the Lord for mercy. I pour out before him my complaint. Before him I tell my trouble. When my spirit grows faint within me, it is you who watch over my way. In the path where I walk, people have hidden a snare for me. Look and see, there's no one at my right hand. No one is concerned for me. I have no refuge. No one cares for my life. I cry to you, Lord. I say you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Listen to my cry, for I am desperate in need. Rescue me from those who pursue me, for they are too strong for me. Set me free from my prison, that I may praise your name. Then the righteous will gather about me because of your goodness to me. Let us pray, people of God. Grant to God that your holy and life-giving spirit may so move every human heart, especially the hearts of the people of this city, Portsmouth, that the barriers which divide us may crumble, suspicions disappear, and hatreds cease, that our divisions may be healed. Bond us together in a common life. Help us in the midst of our struggle for justice and truth to confront one another without hatred or bitterness, and to work together with mutual forbearance and respect. May we live in justice and peace through Christ our Lord. Let the heart say amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, sir. We'll have an electronic roll call for the members of council. Please indicate your presence by hitting the yes button. And Madam Clerk, we have unanimous attendance. Which brings us to consideration of the approval of minutes. We have the minutes of a call meeting of March 11, 2019, the minutes of a call meeting on March 12, 2019, and the minutes of a regular meeting of March 12, 2019. We'll consider these with one motion to approve. Is there such a motion?
Move adoption.
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Ready for the question? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to special presentations. And we had started a process of recognizing the foster families in the city of Portsmouth because we believe in families and the importance. And, pardon me? And with that, Dr. Patton.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, we're going to ask Mrs. Pamela Lulhill, the Director of Social Services, to come forward and introduce our families.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. Tonight we have two families the Department of Social Services would like to recognize. The first one being Ms. Sharon Edwards and family. Ms. Edwards began fostering children 4 years ago. Ms. Edwards became interested in fostering children after listening to her sister's testimonials of the mutual benefits for caring for children. Ms. Edwards has always enjoyed the company of children but had no biological children of her own. She wanted to be able to share her love, nurture, and protect children from harm. As a result, Ms. Edwards committed to going through the training process to becoming a foster parent. She fostered 3 siblings and later adopted all 3, Christian, Cameron, and Kylan. They are A and B honor roll students. Christian was recognized and featured in a magazine through the Project Life program for being an outstanding student. Cameron and Silent were really good at basketball and football and have been on organized teams for the past 2 years. Ms. Edward loves being a parent and enjoys their family activities. She likes traveling and taking the children on vacation. She would like people to understand the importance of ensuring that the biological family is involved when able. Ms. Edwards and her children's biological mother had a great relationship. Prior to her death, they co-parented the children together. Ms. Edwards still ensures that the children remain in connection with their biological family and continues to put the needs of the children first.
Amen.
Isn't this a great family?
Yes.
You can clap again, please. And on behalf of our city council and the citizens of Portsmouth, as a token of our appreciation, who should I give this to? That's you? Yeah. Would you like to say something, please?
Well, this has really been a great experience, moving from being a foster parent to an adoptive parent. Like she stated, I didn't have any biological kids of my own, but I believe everything is for a plan. Things could have been a lot different if I had children on my own, but I believe that God does have a plan for each one of us and that this is destiny, just how everything lined up for me to have the ability to have 3 kids initially as foster children, just from the beginning to the end. So I just want to say I thank God for that and thank you for this recognition.
Thank you. Yeah. Now, let's get a photograph. Yeah, that's a good way. Thank you again.
Thank you. Mayor, I'm not sure if our second family was able to make it, Ms. Sharon Edwards. I'm sorry, that would be Ms. Roundtree? No, she was not able to make it, so would you still like me to?
Yes, would you?
I sure will.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Is she? Oh.
Oh, she's
Been looking for you. Okay, Ms. Roundtree began fostering children also 4 years ago. She felt that there were children out there who needed help, and she wanted to be a resource for them. Ms. Roundtree thought about it several times, did her research, and then made the decision to open up her home to children in need. She began by fostering 2 young children, which resulted in her adoption of them last year. Ms. Roundtree has invested a lot of time in helping her children deal with their individual challenges and necessary adjustments that needed to be made, especially in the area of concerning school. Although the siblings are happy children and enjoy their permanent home and lifelong connections to their new family, Ms. Roundtree also understands the importance and supports the relationship with their biological family. Ms. Roundtree has a sister who has also become a foster parent because of Ms. Roundtree's encouragement. They help each other out with the parenting of the children, share resources, tips, and everything else between the two of them. They also complete trainings together to increase their knowledge and develop their skills as parents. Ms. Roundtree would like to continue to foster and possibly adopt again.
Again, on behalf of the Portsmouth City Council, as a token of our appreciation, please accept this basket. And she has said that she's not a speaking person, but I can feel the love. Can't you?
Thank you. And that concludes our presentations for tonight.
The next is also a special presentation. Today is Delta Day, and it's Council's extreme honor to welcome the Portsmouth Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc., one of the service sororities in our city, chartered on December the 21st, 1943, and they have been working hard ever since to make our city a better place. And I'm going to ask all the Deltas, please stand up. You cannot miss them. Isn't that a beautiful sight? And I know that we have just at least one mother-daughter connection here. I know our Vice Mayor, Lisa Lucas Burke, is a Delta, and I know that her mother, our own Senator Louise Lucas, is a Delta. Are there any other mother-daughter combinations? If there are, would you stand up too? And would you two stand up? Okay, thank you.
Senator, stand.
There. And I'm going to invite your president, Lisa Rogers, to the lectern. And thank you so much for what you do for our community. And thank you for your service, your sisterhood, and especially for the scholarship that you do for our young children.
Yes.
Thank you. Greetings, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, and the other esteemed members of the council. My name is Lisa Rogers, President of Portsmouth Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is an organization of college-educated women committed to the constructive development of its members and to public service, with its primary focus on the Black community. For more than 75 years, Portsmouth Alumni Chapter has been committed to servicing the Portsmouth community and its vicinity through the execution of programs and initiatives centered around the sorority's 5-point programmatic thrust. They consist of economic development, educational development, international awareness and involvement, physical and mental health, and political awareness and involvement. We come here today celebrating our annual Delta Day at Portsmouth City Hall, where we look forward to the opportunity to have one-on-one conversations with city leaders about issues affecting the Portsmouth community. We thank you for your time today and look forward to working alongside you as we work together to accomplish the 4 big things you have prioritized for the city and realize the vision principles that you as a body reaffirmed during your 2019 leadership retreat. Today, we advocate for adequate funding for our school systems. A 2018 ranking of the 132 school districts in the state of Virginia on schooldigger.com ranked Portsmouth Public Schools as 106th in the state. That puts Portsmouth in last place when compared to our neighboring cities in the Hampton Roads area. On niche.com, Portsmouth Public Schools isn't even ranked and is given a grade of C+. Our students deserve more than a mediocre education. Adequate funding will help the school board to hire qualified teachers and allot for new technologies and resources to be made available to the students, increasing student enrollment as families are less likely to enroll their children into private schools. This falls in line with your push to be a smart city and assists with your lifelong learning vision principle. As stated previously, our trip to City Hall today was previously planned, so many of the items we discussed were already coordinated, discussed internally by our organization. But considering recent events, I quote Desmond Tutu as saying, "If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." We are appalled and dismayed at the recent injustices involved in the forced resignation of Portsmouth Police Chief Tanya Chapman. It is a shame and a disgrace that we continue to allow ourselves to be the pawn in the systemic oppression of change and forward progression. The strides that Chief Chapman has made with her department to aid in rebuilding the relationship between the Portsmouth citizens and the police department have been significant. And yet, as progress is being made and significant change in department culture is on the horizon, these actions have essentially snatched the rug from what has been achieved. We call for a full-scale investigation into the actions taken, processes and procedures followed, and the apparent and systemic racism that was involved in the forced resignation of Chief Tanya Chapman. In addition, we ask that Chief Chapman be fully compensated until the investigation is complete. We cannot elevate as a city if there are individuals that continue to hold the down button. Speaking as a citizen and lifelong resident of Portsmouth, I am truly saddened and gravely disappointed by the state that we find ourselves. We have gone from being able to tout ourselves as a city hiring the first African-American police chief in the state of Virginia to taking that historic fact and dragging it and her through the mud. We are better than this, and we should strive to conduct ourselves accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you again for showing up, and thank you for your service to our community. Madam Clerk, would you read the protocol for speakers, please?
Yes, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Our first item of business is a public hearing, item 19-115. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption for the public hearing?
Yes, sir. Public hearing with respect to the adoption of a proposed resolution declaring 146 Owen Street to be surplus real property and authorizing the conveyance of said property to Brandon Esegian. The proposed resolution will authorize the city manager to execute a deed conveying said property to Brandon Esegian.
And Madam Clerk, has this public hearing been duly advertised?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Tonight, we'll conduct a public hearing on the proposed sale of a certain piece of city-owned property. You do not need to have signed up to speak at this public hearing. I invite you, when we open the public hearing, to come to the lectern. Please state your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes. With that, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody that wants to speak at this public hearing? If you do, please come to the lectern. Anybody present want to speak at this public hearing? Hearing none, we'll declare the public hearing closed. Which brings us to unfinished business and the consent agenda, which includes 2 items. And Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of the ordinance and the resolution? And we'll consider this with one motion on the consent agenda.
Yes, sir. Item A, zoning amendment ordinance C-1902. And item B, a resolution granting a use permit to 6S Development LLC to construct and operate a convenience store with gas sales at property consisting of 700 through 708 London Street and 720 London Street, and authorizing certain modifications of zoning standards in conjunction with the use as per specified herein.
Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda, which adopts both the ordinance and the resolution?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion, which is to adopt? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item 19-116, which is the consideration of a certain ordinance. Will you read the caption of the ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting funding from the Virginia Department of Social Services in the amount of $1,800 and appropriating said amount in the FY 2019 Social Services Fund for the Family Partnership Meeting Incentive Program.
So that we can consider this matter as a motion to adopt this ordinance.
Move for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion, which is to adopt? Hearing none, ready for the question. All in favor of the question, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item 19-117, which is the consideration and adoption of another ordinance. Madam Clerk, will you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting funds from the Port Norfolk, Wilson Ward, and Shea Terrace Civic Leagues in the amount of $3,088.75 and appropriating said amount in the FY 2019 General Fund for use by the Department of Parks, Recreation, and Leisure Services for the Neighborhood Incentive Grant Program.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt this ordinance?
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we're ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item 19-118, the consideration of another ordinance. And would you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance accepting an opioid response prevention award in the amount of $15,000 from the Virginia Office of Behavioral Health, Wellness, and appropriating said funds in the FY 2019 Behavioral Health Care Services Fund for use by the Department of BHS to address opioid misuse.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion on the question? Hearing none, we're ready for the question. All in favor, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item 19-119, consideration and adoption of another ordinance. Would you read the caption of that ordinance, please?
Yes, sir. An ordinance to amend ordinance 2018-95 to rescind the appropriation of $126,908 from the FY 2019 Portsmouth Public Schools Grant Fund.
Is there a, so that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt?
Second.
We have a motion to adopt this ordinance. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we're ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to item 19-120, consideration of a certain resolution. And Madam Clerk, would you read that caption, please?
Yes, sir. A resolution approving the 2019 edition of the Emergency Operations Plan for the City of Portsmouth.
Thank you. So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
Move for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded, which is to adopt this resolution. Any discussion on the question? Hearing none, we're ready for the question. All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Item 19-121 is our next item, which is the consideration and adoption of a certain resolution. Madam Clerk, will you read that caption, please?
Yes, sir. A resolution authorizing and supporting submission of an application for participation in the Virginia Department of Transportation Economic Development Access Program.
So that we can consider this matter, is there a motion to adopt this resolution?
Move adoption. Second.
We have a motion to adopt, and it's been seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none and hearing none, we're ready for the question. All in favor, please vote yes. Opposed, no. And Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Item 19-122 is the consideration of the adoption of a certain resolution. And will you read the caption of that resolution, please?
Yes, sir. A resolution declaring a certain city-owned property having a size of approximately 5/100ths of an acre and an address of 146 Owen Street to be surplus real property and authorizing the conveyance of same to Brandon Esegian.
So that we can consider this matter as a motion to adopt this resolution.
Move for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion that's been duly made and seconded to adopt. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor of the motion, please vote yes. Opposed, no. Madam Clerk, that motion carries.
Yes, sir.
Which brings us to new business. Item 19-123, boards and commissions. Councilman Liddy.
Mayor, there are no boards and commissions to discuss tonight.
Thank you. Item 19-124, items submitted by council members. The chair recognizes Councilman Glover.
Mayor, members of City Council, Vice Mayor, City Manager, City Attorney, City Clerk, City Assessor, and the citizens of Portsmouth. It is with great disappointment that I make the following statement with hopes of creating a more perfect environment that focuses on the guiding principles that each of us has committed to by signing a promissory note 2 weeks ago in this chamber. The guiding principles, which includes our compact for leadership, are as stated. Focus on respectful communication. Speak with one voice. Share information. No surprises. Lead by example. Commit to teamwork. Zero tolerance for disrespect. As I continue, I am compelled to clarify who is leading who as it pertains to our city charter. City Council has 5 appointees, and they are City Manager, City Attorney, City Clerk, City Assessor, and City Auditor, all of which who serve at the pleasure of City Council. The appointees are not the boss of City Council, and as elected leaders, we are responsible for their supervision and review of their job performance. Once again, our city and community is put in a position of being the laughingstock of the region, state, and nation. Ultimately, the truth will be revealed. For the record, I want to state that I do not believe this matter was handled properly. I will close by repeating the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The time is always right to do right.
Thank you, sir. The chair recognizes Vice Mayor Lisa Lucas-Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 weeks ago, I gave some information about women who had been elected during not during Women's History Month, but being that it is Women's History Month, I recognize some women, and I would like to continue that tradition as we end Women's History Month this week. Miss Lucy M. Overton. Lucy M. Overton was a civic leader and activist serving as president of the Harrison War Civic League and Truxton Community League, which focused on community improvement in the greater Truxton area. She led an intensive voter registration drive during her time as a civic leader. She was an elector for Al Gore and Joe Lieberman for the 2000 presidential election. She served on the Portsmouth Electoral Board and the Architectural Review Board, representing the Truxton community, at which we'll celebrate their 100th year coming up soon. Lucy M. Overton's efforts were so notable that President Carter invited her to Washington to meet Pope John Paul II in 1989. Second, Miss Ida Barber. Ida Barber founded Miller Day Nursery and Home to provide a day nursery for children of working mothers in 1911. Ms. Barber was a school teacher who took in a family of 5 children in her neighborhood whom had been orphaned and helped organize a group of 20 women from her sewing circle to help support its opening in 1917. A group of child welfare workers merged their efforts and Ms. Barber's group to form a more unified service for the children of Portsmouth. Ms. Barber taught and led the school until her declining health forced her retirement in 1923. Miller Day Nursery Home is believed to be among the oldest continuously operating daycares in the nation, which is now the Ida Barber Early Learning Center. Thank you for this time.
Thank you so much. Our next item is report on pending items. Do we have any pending items?
No, Mayor, Vice Mayor, we do not.
Good. Which brings us to a point where I'm going to ask the city clerk again to read the protocol on speakers, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his or her comments.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Moody.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. If there's consensus, I'd like to call upon our attorney, Mr. Ashby, to read the state statute that prevents us from discussing personnel matters. I know a lot of people are going to be talking about subjects, and you'll see us sitting up here silent. We aren't bumps on the log, but we are prevented from engaging in replies and details. So if there's consensus for our attorney to do that, I would like to request that.
Seeing no dissent, Mr. City Attorney, can you review this for council and the public?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council, I believe it's Section 311 and 322 of the City Code provides.
City Charter?
City Charter and the City Code provides that the City Council is prohibited from involving themselves in the day-to-day affairs of the operation of city government with regard to the appointees and the employment of individuals who are hired by the city manager. That is a paraphrase of the limitation as it relates to City Council.
Thank you. It's council policy that we do not allow personal attacks either directly or indirectly. We're at that point where we have non-agended speakers. I ask you to be respectful as the audience to the speaker. And please do not, anyone, have any personal attack either directly or indirectly. The next speaker is Betty Wright, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Mayor, City Council members, all assembled, good evening. My name is Betty Wright, not the singer, of 1451 Welcome Road. I do not believe the Chief of Police, Tanya Chapman, quit as reported on TV and in the newspapers. She is not a quitter. She always had an open door policy to the public. My mate of 62 years and I have been working with the Portsmouth Police Department since former Chief Ronnie Boone, long before some of you were even born. Transparency is what you stated when you were running for office. We do not want propaganda, we want the truth. I'm a longtime member of Cavalier Manor Police Community Relations Committee, the oldest, the longest, and continuous neighborhood watch in Virginia, and the Cavalier Manor Civic League. We do not want Chief Chapman to leave Portsmouth with a stain on her perfect record, spotless record. She is a people person. I retired from the Portsmouth Police Department, and I think for the most part, we have an excellent police department, but there are still a pocket of good old boys which hide behind the FOP to do their dirty work, along with others on council. Former police Chapman will not regain her job here on in Portsmouth, which is a blessing in disguise, because we believe there are better things ahead for her. Chief Green, watch your back. Thank you very much for listening. Oh, one more thing, because my time isn't up. We believe that 6 months severance pay, along with a positive recommendation, is due Chief Chapman.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker is Markeith Hunt. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, my name is Marquise Hunt, a delegate and national officer of the NAACP. And I stand before you this evening 8 days after the citizens of the city of Portsmouth were made aware through breaking news of the unpredicted resignation of our police chief, Chief Tanya Chapman. In the 8 days where the citizens of Portsmouth have received no answer as to why this resignation was A, drafted, and B, accepted, we do know that this gesture that woke those that had not been awake for a while, or the few who pretend to be asleep, was voluntarily submitted. This we know not because of what we heard or what we thought was true, but because of what we know and what we have heard from the source. In the past few years, we have seen a system quite like the Trumpism form of government. And as we all know, that what happens at the top will eventually trickle down to the bottom, but it must stop here. We have seen leaders in all aspects targeted and stripped of their voices through policies that are voted on by some of you who do not occasionally have everyone's best interest at heart, but would do anything to ensure that we do not get away from the foundation that Portsmouth was built upon 161 years ago when slavery was still legal, and yet 161 years later, we have the legacy of public hangings through our elected officials who not only call out injustice, but work towards eradicating those same policies that have a lingering influence on how this city is ran. With that said, in 2016, Portsmouth chose, because there were many other options, but Portsmouth chose to hire the first black woman to lead a municipal police force in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I don't know about anyone else, but I do not believe that in a little over a 3-year time period that much has changed about the qualifications that got Chief Tanya Chapman the job in 2016. But what I can tell you is that since 2016, Chief Chapman has changed a lot about and redefined the Portsmouth Police Department and rid some of the individuals of their jobs who were not qualified to have them to begin with. We have seen the implementation of programs that have not been seen before, such as the Chiefs Advisory Board, Reset and CEO Community Walks, the Young Adults Police Chiefs Commission, the Police Chiefs Forum, Coloring with the Cop, and several other community policing related programs. In the midst of all of the good that police chief has done, with the helping hand of many in the department, we have recognized that when she began to purge the department from its impaired tradition of things being done by those who were sworn to protect and serve the citizens and visitors of this city, she too became a target and a force to be reckoned with by those officers who got comfortable in an institution that had never been challenged before. And because I see my time is running up, Mr. Mayor, I will request more time at the end, if you may. There is no reason that in 2019, people across this country continue to deal with the unjustified killings of black and brown people, let alone deal with the institutional and systematic racism that is living in the same organization and target the men and women of color who took the same oath to protect and serve. And to the individuals who just so happen to be police officers and expert racists, shame on you. Because if you, as an officer, can call another officer a trunk monkey and feel as if you should be pardoned from any type of punishment, I can only imagine the attitude you have against those you come in contact with in our community. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, can we challenge the forces of unconscious white privilege and implicit bias to come out of the closet and be held accountable? And with that being said, with the 57 seconds left, I yield my time.
Our next speaker is Pam Phillips. Pam Phillips, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Pamela Phillips, and I live in the Parkview neighborhood of Portsmouth.
I'm here before City Council and the City Manager to show my support for former Police Chief Chapman. I hope that I knew when the City of Portsmouth hired Ms. Chapman, she would become the new police, when she became the new police chief in 2016, that Portsmouth would be a short stop in her career. Her resume showed a person of personal drive and with resounding integrity. I did not suspect at the time that whenever Police Chapman departed Portsmouth, that it would be due to the normal Portsmouth political behind doors dealings. Former Police Chief Chapman tried to change the working culture of the police department. Culture changes are difficult and have to be led from the inside, from the top down. These changes always have stumbling blocks because members inside the organization have the feeling that they're losing power. Former Police Chief Chapman was in the process of changing this culture, changing the police department into a more universal community policing program. The department already had officers that were using the community policing style of law enforcement. Most times, Chief Chapman led community reset walks after a major crime I would see on social media from officers and family of officers complaining about how these walks were a waste of time and it wasn't doing real police work. What these officers and family members fail to realize is what they were doing was real police work. The leadership of the department going out into neighborhoods that had just sustained trauma to try to rebuild the trust of these neighborhoods. These are in communities that have been systematically forgotten and not been heard for generations, where we have to work on actually gaining the trust of these individuals in these neighborhoods so that they will start coming forward to police and actually disclosing what they may know about the crimes that are going on in their community. Police Chief Chapman was also trying to field a police department that was diverse and matched the demographics of Portsmouth at all levels. This diversity is needed for the continued improvement of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Sergio O'Neill. Sergio O'Neill, and sir, you have 5 minutes. Sergio O'Neill. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Sergio O'Neill. I live in the Cavalier Manor section here in this great city. My main topic tonight was to share my angst with the proposed budget, especially when it regards public education. I have to say, as a citizen of Portsmouth, I am highly upset that the decision has been, the recommendation has been given that we freeze funding for public education here in this city. If we all know, and we can all tell, even with a declining enrollment, the challenges our students face are going up. The challenges our teachers face are going up. Our students are exposed to more trauma day in and day out in this city, and something has to be done. You cannot do that with level funding. We can say that, we need to look at both budgets on both sides, which is true. We can also say that the employees of the Portsmouth Public School System are under the direction of the school system and the school board members. However, at the end of the day, it is all of us who must work together to improve public education here in this city. I find it to be highly disturbing that our teachers are going to be out once again, picketing, marching, protesting, probably calling out, because they have to choose between paying their own light bills, paying their own mortgages, paying their own car notes, feeding their kids, and coming to work and teaching somebody else's kids. How would you feel if somebody said, we're going to freeze your raise? How would you feel if somebody came to you and said, but by the way, still come to work? Some of our teachers, they come from other cities. They travel. I know because I work outside the city. I can show you my Easy Pass bill right now. It's probably higher than everybody put together in here. What message does this send to our teachers that our city has found it to be that they don't deserve a raise? The second question I have is, where is the business that the governor is proposing a raise for constitutional officers? That's the first I ever heard of that last night, and I'm not doubting that is true or not true. I just want to see the proof, because the way it looks to me that was prioritized over our school system. I know when we had the same discussion last year, the same budget season, one of the first things out of my mouth was that we need to look at how we can come together as partners with our school system. You know, every day I look as a person that works in education myself and say, without those teachers, where would I be? I'm quite sure you all can ask the same question. I think that we need to start taking a look at the decisions that we're making. We need to start taking a look at how we're spending money in this city. Because I can guarantee you right now, without a sound education system, those dollars gonna go down even more. Because nobody in their right mind that cares about the young people in their family will move to a city with a school system that does not value its teachers. It's as simple as that. I'm gonna be perfectly honest with everybody in this room. My son goes to school in the city of Hampton. For the reason being, I would love for him to come to Portsmouth Public Schools. For one thing, though, that I can't subject my son to the type of embarrassment that we suffer every day, day in and day out, especially when it comes to budget season with public education. I just cannot do that. I would rather take the money and spend the gas going to Hampton. As much as I love the city of Portsmouth, people know me, I really do, but I can't support that. I highly recommend that we go back and take a look at this budget and find out how we can support public education in this city. Because I can guarantee you right now, if we don't, you can hang up economic development, because people, smart business people, only move their businesses to the city with a solid education system. It's proven fact. To end my comments, because I have 30 seconds left, I'm an education activist, but I have to say this. The business with our police chief, no matter where the decision came from, I think is highly embarrassing. We have made the international news once again for nothing good. But I can tell you right now, whoever's hand is in that pot, if she was not let go for reasons that are founded, your turn is coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Garland Alexander. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, city manager. My name is Garland Alexander. I live at 2913 Tanbark Lane, city of Portsmouth. Been here all my life. I am here tonight to speak for the Portsmouth Public Safety retirees. Approximately 80 of them belong to the Firefighters Local 539. It is humbling for us to come before council numerous times to request a across-the-board adjustment of $100 a month. In budget year 2020, it will be 4 years since we've had any increase bi-monthly. We feel that the years of service that these dedicated retirees gave to the city should mean more to you. Many of these are in poor health and are dying because of the conditions and poor equipment that was available when we served. They suffering from suffering and dying from COPD, heart problems, and cancer, which has been proven to be job-related for firefighters. It is too late for the heart and lung bill and the cancer bill to help because they've been retired too long. Most of the retirees who left here 30 to 40 years ago do not have enough pay to live as they deserve. Some widows and widowers receive $10,000 a year in pay. It is amazing that council approved a second set of turnout gear and supports a cancer bill, which we support both items, but cannot find a way to give the retirees a $100 supplement a month out of our pension system due to mismanagement by prior managers, council members, and pensions persons who found should not have been in the fund. The retirement system was improperly used for workman's comp taken out of it instead of putting people under workman's comp, putting people under the retirement system when they shouldn't have been added. Now you want to present retirees to pay the mistakes of past and never give us an increase in pay. The prior CFO said in a recent retirement board meeting, and I quote her, "Maybe we can consider could possibly give a raise in 2040. Most of us will not be here in 2040. We went to Richmond to speak to our representatives to support the legislative package of Portsmouth, which includes casino bill, cancer bill. All of you who ran for seats on council asked for the Retired Association to support and help. We worked hard to help get you elected and had 30 volunteers working the polls for you, and some of them had medical problems, including COPD, heart problems, and cancer. I was one of the cancers. And some were in their 80s. I'm not quite 80. They still worked the polls to make Portsmouth a better place to live, work, and feel safe. You always said that you would support us, and now is the time to do the right thing, and I encourage the manager to find a way to accomplish these items of $100 a month. We also request that you keep the HRA program as it is and for January 2020. This program is a great benefit to retirees who have least income. And now the manager or somebody's recommended that we do away with these things for the poor people that's in the city, on the retirees, and use it to balance the retirement system that was rated by prior councils, instead of maybe using something like the rainy day fund or whatever else you need to come up with to help the retirement system. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Grover Holloman, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, city manager.
Sir, you speak in the mic, please.
My name is Grover Holloman, and I'm a retiree of the city of Portsmouth with 29 years of service in the fire department. I'm here tonight to ask for your support for a pay adjustment of $100 a month for all fire and police retirees. We ask for this funding adjustment to come out of the public safety retirement system. It has been 4 years since we received a pay increase, and some of our retirees and widows are having a hard time making ends meet. They have to make a choice between buying groceries or getting a needed prescription filled. The City of Portsmouth officials are always talking about the city's great history and we all agree that the city does have a long and great history. The City Council has the opportunity to help the people who have been a big part of that history over the years. I urge you to do the right thing and help the past employees who have worked hard and had dedication to help get the city where it is today. I also urge you to support the continuation of the $1,400 health reimbursement account. That's also very important to our retirees. Thanks for your consideration in this important matter.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Lorenzo Waters, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Lorenzo Waters. I'm from the Kevlar Mountain section of Portsmouth. I'm here tonight in support of the former Chief of Police, Mrs. Tanya Chapman, and I think it was an injustice on the way she was forced out of office. I mean, to be given an ultimatum of being fired or resigning don't make sense. And for no reason to be given and everybody to be quiet and to try to sweep everything under the rug, thinking it's going to go away. It's not. There's a problem within the police department, and those problems was being addressed by the chief of police. And that is one of the reasons why she was let go. She was actually doing her job. But some people within an organization that supported some of your council members, Ms. Simmons, Mr. Moody, John Rowe, Nathan Clark, y'all were supported by these people. And y'all are the one that they came to. And in turn, y'all got with the city manager, Dr. Patton. And that's why the chief of police, our former chief of police, was forced out of office. Now, it's not going to solve the problem. Things will probably get worse than what they are, because you got rid of someone who was doing the job, someone who was addressing the problems that they had in their department. And she was doing her job. And that's why she was let go. That's why she was forced out. I'm not going to say let go. She was forced out. Whenever you go to someone and tell them that you will be fired or you can resign, and then no reason is given, but a lot of people know that the council members in which I named were supported by this organization. And after the report came to the council members, then y'all in turn went to the city manager. And that's why our former chief of police was forced out of her position. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Donna Sy, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Donna Sy, and I live in the Woodbine Farms neighborhood. My topic tonight will be about boundaries. The first set of boundaries we were taught came from our parents. The next set of boundaries were taught us at school. The third set of boundaries were taught us at church. This is how we learn to self-govern. So our local government is of the people, by the people, and for the people. The elected affirm they would follow the Constitution to be the people's servants. One of the principles of liberty states, if an elected crosses a boundary, the majority of the people may alter or abolish a government which has become tyrannical, which means harsh, cruel, and unjust. Our Constitution sets boundaries on the elected to keep them from becoming unjust, cruel, and harsh. Boundaries allow the people to self-govern. Here's an example of setting boundaries to allow a youth to self-govern. On Saturday, a neighborhood youth came to my house and asked if he could cut the grass in my front yard. I said, okay. I looked around and wondered, how much is my front yard? There was no boundary to signify my front yard. I asked my friend to make a boundary for my front yard. With the directions I gave my friend, he created a boundary on either side of my house. It looked great. He used his creative spirit to get the job done. When the youth came back to cut the grass, I showed him the boundary of the front yard. He saw the area, cut the grass, and received his pay. Now, where are the boundaries for the city's government? The boundaries are outlined in the Virginia Constitution, the city charter, the city code, boards and commission, and job description, to name a few. Look at how the Virginia Constitution is implemented in our city. See the Virginia Constitution, city charter, boards and commission, and city code. It starts with the municipal organization of Portsmouth. The citizens are at the top for us to self-govern. We, the people, are to tell the 7 elected council members what our needs are. We also tell the 5 constitutional officers what our needs are. This chart shows the line of communication for the people to self-govern. Wait a minute. Let's look at the division on the chart. It has 3 columns. Let's look at the organizational structure for the departments. It has 4 columns. Already we can see there's a broken line of communication. That means one person is going to be controlling everything in the city because there are no boundaries for the people to self-govern. Not only are the people failing to have their needs met, they are having to witness all kinds of conflict. Conflict from pressure by mandates and requirements. Conflicts from a top-down imposed mandates, or conflict from these resisting imposed mandates, or using management consultants instead of available resources of the people. No boundaries within the structure of the city has caused Portsmouth to have a second-class reputation. What citizens wants to live in a city with a second-class reputation? The people can change our reputation if the elected would listen to the people. The first thing to do is to place boundaries in our organizational structure of the city. This new structure will allow we, the people, to self-govern. This structure will allow conversation. Looking at the research in your packet, it reports that leadership is a conversation. The traditional corporate communication of top-down imposed mandates has to give way to process that must be conversational. Because the city has no completed boundaries in its organizational structure, the elected allows for a top-down command and control approach to the people. This old process does not allow anyone in this city to have their needs met. In fact, the conflict that was raging behind closed doors has now been revealed. Okay, elected, you have a job to do. Work together with the people and implement a comprehensive organizational structure of the city. A new organizational chart will stop the majority of the conflict. Other issues can be resolved restoratively by using either circle dialogue or restorative justice conference so that harm is repaired and relationships are restored. All the problems in this city has resulted from the city having no boundaries. The no boundaries resulted from the elected not overseeing ways for communication lines to be available to the people to self-govern. Because of the people's inability to self-govern, the people have been treated harshly, cruelly, and unjustly for the past 100 years by the elected.
Ma'am, your time is up.
I see it.
Our next speaker is Elvira Johnson Williams, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
I can tell time, sir. Please don't do anything.
Good evening, Council, and the citizens of Portsmouth. My name is Elvira Johnson Williams, and I live in the North Truxton section of this city. I'm greatly concerned with what's going on within our city and our government, and I'm so sick and tired of Portsmouth being the laughingstock by the newspaper, by the media, by the other cities. I had a news reporter come to my house last week to interview me about the resignation of our chief. I didn't tell him what he wanted to know because I didn't know what it was. And because of that, that interview never aired. It wasn't gossipy enough. It was too good towards the chief. So that wasn't good enough for them. They want gossip, they want dirt. And counsel, I gotta give it to you. Y'all sure giving them enough. When y'all were out there begging for votes, doing hot dog ministries, and all this other stuff, promising us a change is gonna come. It came. I'm gonna give it to the good old boys. I am. Y'all got rid of Kenny Wright. Y'all got rid of Mark Whitaker. Now you done got the police chief gone. Dr. Patton, you next. The way this went down, whoa, y'all horrible. Y'all just horrible. I don't even have nothing nice to say about some of you members on council. And I say that because you said you was gonna give us total transparency. It's a darn shame that half the council didn't even know what you were doing. You went in your little back room, and she didn't do what you wanted her to do when you wanted her to do it, and then you got rid of her. Brown nosing goes a long ways, Dr. Patton. I'm just saying. Now I got a question, and I know you're not gonna answer the question, but how in the name of heaven can a police chief for 3 years get such rave reviews, excellent evaluations, so good? Dr. Patton says she got the best of the best to lead this city for the police force. And then you're gonna give her a raise? And then you're gonna tell her that she got to resign or be fired. I wouldn't want you as my manager. Now, I got a lot of things up here that I should say, but I'm not. But what I'm gonna say is this. I know a few things that y'all don't think I know. And what I do know is this. You got rid of a good woman simply because she's black and she was doing the job she was hired to do. That I know. I also know that you put Chief Green, who I really admire, you put her in an interim position so that she would never have the possibility of being police chief. I know that. And I also know you got Chief Mook hiding somewhere around here in this building, waiting to be put into position. These things I know. I just want to know when the citizens of this city gonna wake up and get rid of Bill Moody, John Rowe, Elizabeth Simmons, Nathan Clark. I'm gonna call you by name. But I do hope and I do pray that any more money that we got to spend, Elizabeth, you got $700,000. John Rowe, you got over $5,000 of our money. Give it back to us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Catherine Moore, and you have 5 minutes.
Honorable Mayor Rowe and honorable members of the City Council, Mr. City Attorney, and Mrs. City Manager. I'm Catherine D. Moore. I've been a resident and property owner in Portsmouth since 1983. My maternal grandmother lived at 1218 Lecky Street, a home she bought in 1922. 4 generations of my family are buried at Olive Branch Cemetery. I have no immediate plans to join them there. I prefer to enjoy my life in Portsmouth, as what I hope you will agree is best described as a lifelong residency. My friends in other Hampton Road cities often ask, why do you live in Portsmouth? Tonight I'm asking myself that question more than ever. The City of Portsmouth Police Chief and the Fire Chief are hired by and report directly to the City Manager. There's a good reason for that. Public safety is too serious to allow its management to be subject to the caprice of political whim. Yet that's exactly what's happened. In the firing or the forced resignation, whichever we're going to call it, of Chief Tanya Chapman, politics has been allowed to pierce the wall of separation that the city's governing documents were designed to protect the chief and the residents against such shenanigans. The achievements of Chief Chapman in her all too brief tenure are numerous and have benefited the city greatly. Portsmouth is safer today because of her good work. Perhaps the best indicator of what was more than a 50% drop in the city's homicide rate in 2016, as reported by the Virginian Pilot, a two-time Pulitzer Prize-winning publication. What's not known are the reasons a city manager was fired or asked to resign. You fired or asked to resign an outstanding cop. Portsmouth residents deserve an explanation. So do all of you. I call upon the City Council to demand a full explanation from the City Manager. And I call upon you to make that information public. Do not hide behind the mantra, "We don't discuss personnel matters," because of FOIA or the city charter. Tanya Chapman was my police chief, as much or more than she was yours. She protected my community, my neighbors, and me. I want to know why the city manager has been allowed to take Chief Chapman and the protection she gave us all away from the community, from my neighbors, and from me. Members of the City Council, you deserve an answer, and so do the residents of Portsmouth. I respectfully request that you get that answer and share it with your constituents. I appreciate the time you've allotted me tonight. I yield the rest of my time, 1 minute, to the bright young man from the NAACP.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker is Veronica Jackson. Veronica Jackson, ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Council. My name is Veronica Jackson. I live in the Churchland area, Ebony Heights. But I must say this. This is my first time here, and my heart is so saddened with what I have heard tonight. And I'm sitting there saying, God, what is happening to our city? And the Word of God says, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear, and I will heal their land. I am so sick to my soul about what is happening here. I had no idea of all of this stuff that is happening. It has to stop. My issue that I have tonight, it really don't mean nothing from what I've heard tonight. I live at 5802 Dunkirk Street. I've lived there since 2011. I have an issue of water in my driveway. Ever since I've lived there, I've called down to the city numerous of times, and they tell me, just be patient. We're gonna send someone out and take care of it, but we are so backed up. Backed up with what? I can't get in my driveway without water. Rodents, dogs, cats, raccoons, everything drinks water out of my driveway. And I have called, I've even much as called Wavy TV 10 to see if I could get somebody there to come and help me to get this water. I can't even keep my tires clean on my car. Driving in water all the time. It never ends. Every time the water do try to go down, it rains again. We've been getting water, rain, rain, rain. And I am so sick of it. I have respiratory infections because of all that standing water all the time in my driveway. Every day that the Lord sends is water in my driveway, and I am so sick of it. But what I'm going through, from what I've heard, is nothing. I just need to just go sit down and just forget about it. So, as James Brown says, can y'all please send somebody from the city of Portsmouth, not let me pay my water bill and see what happens. And I'm tired of it. So please help me in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker is Mark Godolgi Ostrowski. And sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, honorable members of council, and fellow interested parties. I should have been born and raised in Missouri because I'm a show-me kind of guy. I'm a skeptic, and I don't believe the first account that I hear. I like to hear all the facts before I make a pronouncement. And unfortunately, we live in an age where everybody rushes to judge. Now, in regard to the dismissal of Chief Chapman, I'm somebody who had a positive opinion of her from the public process that was involved in hiring the chief. And I have retained a positive image of her during her tenure as chief. Ms. Phillips talked about some of the programs she instituted, and I feel very favorably toward those. There are a number of you on council with whom I have a history, standing at this podium and being ignored, disrespected, and generally waited out. But still, I recognize your humanity. And I don't believe that even the ones I have the most difficulty with in terms of how you vote and how you act as public servants, I still believe that you are doing what, in accordance with your own lights, is serving the best interests of the public. I wish I could convince you that the best interests were served other ways, but still, you have your view and I have mine. And what troubles me here is we don't have enough facts to draw good conclusions about what happened with Chief Chapman. We have heard her side of the story. That's rare. Normally, when somebody is dismissed, we never hear that person's side for a number of reasons, and I'm not going to run through them. I believe you as a policy body have an obligation, though, because the facts that have been presented, or the viewpoints that have been presented, show that this dismissal, whether warranted or not, was done very badly in terms of considering her humanity. You, as a policy body, should be looking at how this came about and implement changes. That's your role here. No, you cannot direct the city manager in terms of management of individual members of her staff, but in terms of setting a policy for how people are treated who work for this city, that's your mandate. So I would suggest that you take this as an opportunity to revisit what existing personnel policies are and look for ways to improve them. The other thing I ask of you is you find a way to put out relevant facts that do not put the city in a weak position in the event of legal action, but still help the public understand what has transpired here. Because I think there are more sides to this story than have been made public thus far. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Sheila Joseph, and ma'am, you have 5 minutes.
My name is Sheila Joseph. I'm from 139 Grand Street, Portsmouth, Virginia, and I greet everyone in love of what I'm about to say. Before Chief Chapman came, like Ms. Wright said, when we had the police down on McLean Avenue, we did a lot of community efforts, and then a lot of that stuff kind of fell away. I remember one time an officer had a lynching rope, and he put it around his neck, and he said, "I wish I could hang myself." And I told him it was very offended. And so I have experienced a lot of racist things through our police, whether it was the police officers that were black, they had issues too, as well as the white. But I wanted to say to you today, I said long time ago before, today we are under modern slavery. And a lot of people don't understand what I say, but I'll say it. I told you once before that I came here and spoke about how we was in the back of the bus. I was one of those peoples, but I didn't allow them to force me to do it. And today, people ask me to do certain things. I said, no, I want the freedom to speak my mind. If I was up there like you all, then I'm under control of different influences, other people. So I can speak my mind by saying that Chief Chapman was highly paid and chosen by those that chose her to lead D.C. and I think Arlington and whatever areas she was at doing the job that she do. And that's why she came here. But she came in the mix of the time when we had the trial of Rankin and Chapman. But the thing was, a lot of people didn't know that we experienced marching away from Norcom and coming down. A lot of people didn't show that they had SWAT teams right from high school up to the city of Portsmouth City Hall. And I see that it's showing an example of a new world order for those that don't want to hear about it, and putting martial law and different things in place. I'm speaking about some things that people don't want to talk about. And I see that a lot of people that are racist, they sit behind the cloth of what they do under the badge, and then also in different seats of leadership. I'm saying, again, together, citizens, I done said it once and I'm gonna say it again. You have the power, but you're not utilizing the power, because you vote them in and you can vote them out. And I'm saying, again, stop lip service and start putting things that you want to see to happen in writing. And then nobody won't be able, from the media or any other way, can change what you have to say. Chief, I'm sorry that you're gonna leave, but like someone said, maybe it's for the best. But she came on a mission to make change. And I'm gonna give you an example. On McLean, where the bus is at, I observe a lot. I observed that they had the police parked down there. Then they had one at the monument. It looked as if you was in the style that I knew it had to be something she had to do with, because we never had it. And they had police parked in different areas, highlighted. So I'm assuming that it was for to hurry up and get to somewhere, you know. So therefore, what she was doing was a good job. She was bringing the citizens together and sit down and talk to them. I remember during the trial, we sit in Tidewater community, and 30 Muslims came and sit in the mix with me and others. We went in uninvited. We didn't know about it, but we was invited. And we saw Dr. Patton and a whole lot of people know that I'm telling the truth. It was some good things that they was trying to implement for change in this city to better the things for the citizen. And I will never forget it. I left from this city hall from a meeting about me being flooded. And I'm still dealing with the water from 2016. I took 200 gallons of water out of one room, and I came before you. Not you, sir, but Mayor Wright said, Dr. Patton, somebody get with her. Nobody haven't got with me yet. And I'm saying, I've been asking for a drainage.
Ma'am, your time is up.
Together we can make a difference.
Your time is up. Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Vernon Crump, and sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Rowe, Vice Mayor Lucasberg, Council. I want to just plainly state that this was very disheartening for me to hear what happened to Chief Tanya Chapman. The first thing that came to mind was shock. I just couldn't believe it. I'm saying to myself, what would possess whoever to make that decision? And then after I got over the shock, it dawned on me what happened. I knew right away what happened. And Chief Chapman confirmed my belief on yesterday with her statement on Facebook. I got to read some of this. It's very moving. I encourage you to read it. I have never witnessed the degree of bias and acts of systemic racism, discriminatory practices, and an abuse of authority in all my almost 30 years in law enforcement and public safety. She said the reason for this was a small contingency within the Portsmouth Police Department. which led me to ask the question, who is leading the police department? Is it some outside group or minority of members? Or is it the chief? That was my first question. Who is leading the Portsmouth Police Department? Or who was leading it? Because who was leading it obviously is still leading it. Chief Chapman said that, Dr. Patton, you were the conduit for this person or these people. I've always been fully convinced that people get ideas all the time. They're just not good ones. Was it worth it for all of this? Was it worth it? Whoever that person that made that decision, and the former chief said it began 2 years ago to try to get a no confidence vote. Whoever that person is who co-opted others and finally ended up in the office or on the cell phone of Dr. Patton. And they're not here, whoever they are. They're not in this room tonight. No, they're not that brave. I just want to ask the question, was it worth it for us to make the news again for something negative? Was it worth it for us to be today in the New York Times? Was it worth it? I would have a problem sleeping at night knowing that I caused all of this. I would have a problem, but it depends on what kind of heart that you have pumping in your chest. One of my favorite singers was Sam Cooke. A change is going to come.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Dr. Melvin Mariner. Sir, you have 5 minutes.
Good evening to everyone, to Mayor Rowe, to Vice Mayor Lucas Burke, to members of City Council, and to City Manager and City Attorney. I'm Melvin Mariner. I've been honored to serve the Grove Church for 30 years, and I am delighted to have represented Portsmouth in many ways. I've come not to attack because I've learned the years of wisdom that attacking individuals will oftentimes lead them to rethink or perhaps close their consciousness to what needs to be heard and responded to. And therefore, I want to simply say that we've lost a very innovative professional person by the name of Tanya Chapman, who was leveling the playing field for Portsmouth Police Department. I'm not knowledgeable of all the personnel issues, but I echo the sentiments of many constituents who are in this room and who are watching and who may simply be waiting to hear what happened about why the chief of police was terminated or resigned. I come at this very precious moment because I have no idea of what truly happened within her own department, but I believe that she had ideas for a better community police force. I believe that she sought after accountability, management, and she sought after much better diversity. In her release on yesterday, I read it several times where she exposed the challenges and her concerns about what was happening in the police department. Her concerns are now our concerns. Chief Chapman understood the demographics in the city in which she served, and she attempted to eradicate promotional entitlement without competency. She desired to eradicate the good old boy privilege without earning the right to be promoted. We stand here knowing that one who had great tenure, one who had great leadership responsibility, still wanted to make a difference within her department. But under her leadership, there were some still operating under the umbrella of the old ideology, drenched in systemic racism, or perhaps more than that, a sense of entitlement that caused them to think they were much better than others. My concern, as we prepare to move forward, hopefully, is that some want to return to the days of Andy Griffin and the good old days of Mayberry, where you saw little to no women or minority representation. I'm concerned about our females and our minority officers who may be overlooked for promotional and perhaps strong leadership positions and subject to hostility and unfair treatment. In 2018, there were over 50 recruits hired, which consisted of 74% women and minorities. I unfortunately, have to accept the fact that Tanya Chapman is no longer chief of police, but her concerns are still our concerns. I'm concerned that we will, through insensitivity, return to the ineffective and antiquated policing methods that pit those in blue against those in our communities. I'm concerned that all of her initiatives will be nullified because the good old boy network simply doesn't want community to be better, but simply wants to parade themselves as one in authority. Can you listen for a quick moment as I remind you of her initiatives? Her initiatives such as community engagement, Teens and Traffic Stop Program, Faith Behind the Badge Coalition, Young Adult Police Chiefs Commission, many, many more I could name. I simply want to stand here and hope that you give her what she deserves, proper severance, as well as a positive recommendation. She deserves this after 3 years of service and 30 years of professional law enforcement service. I hope, as I stand here and close now, I believe in the power of prayer, but also that Jesus also turned tables over. Again, I am not attacking, I am simply saying that Reverend Walker mentioned in his opening prayer about suspicion and civility. Well, I hope that our suspicions of one another will cease, but not without transparency. Thank you for listening and sharing this moment with me.
Thank you, sir. This concludes our agenda. I sincerely appreciate everybody coming tonight. I sincerely appreciate your comments. This meeting is now adjourned.